If you know this song, please sing for the prayers and with your memories. Oh
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Welcome to Manzanar Pilgrimage. Can we give one more round of applause to our performers? It's amazing, thank you. So, before I introduce myself, we're going to start off with the processional. Manzanar is representing all of the camps, so if we can join them in a few moments of silence as we start this processional, and the banners are just going to make their way around this way, come down the center. Good afternoon and welcome to Manzanar Pilgrimage. It is a blustery day. It is a blustery day, but what better way for us to truly understand, put ourselves in the shoes of those who are here. My name is Craig Ishii. I will be the MC for this afternoon. I believe in the next generation, and I believe in sharing the important stories of our past. That is why I am the founder, or one of the founders and current director of a youth-serving organization down in LA called Kizuna. More importantly, it's why I'm honored to be here this afternoon to help facilitate the program. Before I introduce our first speakers, I really think that the pilgrimage is a great way for us to reflect every year. You know, for any one of us, we're living in a world that is becoming increasingly busy. All of us have come before, including the shoulders of the greatest generation. And it forces folks like myself to even acknowledge that we're part of a continuum, and that as much as we remember the past, we do have a duty to continue to move our community into the future. So before we start, we do have some VIPs who are with us today. I'll ask you to hold your applause until I introduce all 5 of them, and we'll do that with the next 3 sections. So our first VIP, and I'm going to pause every now and then as the wind blows by. Our first VIP is June Lang Mei. She is a former city clerk with the City of Los Angeles and a co-founder of the Asian Pacific Gays and Lesbians, who's been a longtime partner with the Manzanar Committee. Our second is Ed Obayashi. He's a special assistant to the sheriff of Inyo County. We have 2 supervisors, Inyo County supervisors, who have joined us, Matt Kingsley and Brian Tilleman. And our final guest, our final VIP, is Harry Horinouchi, who is the Consul General of the City of Los Angeles. So if we can give all 5 of them a round of applause for joining us. There are also 5 sponsors who have done quite a bit to make this program happen today. I'll ask that you hold your applause until I read all 5. The first is Sansei Legacy. We thank them. 4 sponsors. Joyce Okazaki and Bo Sakaguchi. So if we can give the 4 of them a round of applause. And last, although not this year, but typically it is a very hot day, so Crystal Geyser does generously provide water, and that tent was donated by the Eastern Sierra Interpretive Center, so if we can give them a round of applause. It's my honor to introduce our first two welcome speakers. Our first speaker will be Beverly Newell. She is the tribal elder of the Lone Pine Paiute Shoshone Reservation. Now, the Manzanar Committee felt that it was very important to recognize that even though this is a historic site, it does lie on Native American soil, and so a partnership between these two communities is of the utmost importance, followed by, we'll give you this mic, followed by Beverly will be Bernaette Johnson, who is the new superintendent of the Manzanar National Historic Site. I think everyone who has done work with Manzanar recognizes all the time, effort, and dedication of our previous superintendent, Leslie Nafuku, but I hear that Manzanar is in amazing hands. Not only is Bernaette a great leader, but she has amazing vision. So Manzanar has been and will continue to be in the best of hands. So I'd like to introduce Beverly, followed by Bernaette.
Good afternoon. My name is Beverly Newell, and I'm an elder of the Lone Pine Paiute Shoshone tribe. My family and people have lived in this valley for thousands of years. I would like to welcome those of you who have lived here for time and have returned to Manzanar for a visit. I would also like to welcome those of you who are here for the first time. Manzanar is a place where many stories can be learned about history and people, and we are lucky enough to be here with those who have a memory of being here many years ago. I have some of my own memories. I was about 6 years old when the internees came up into our valley by car on Highway 395. My mother and father and I stood out in front of our house as the parade of cars came by. The highway at that time was a narrow two-lane road, and it was filled with those vehicles which were loaded with personal items such as luggies and houseware. Later, Manzanar was in full operation. I had the opportunity to visit the administrative area. My impressions were of how green and beautiful the area was with blooming flowers. I was only 6 years old at this time, so that's my impression. I was not allowed to visit the residential area, but I did get to go to the administrative area. Having relatives in Fort Independence, we visited often, and I remember going to Manzanar and seeing the guard towers with the men and their machine guns. I also remember how green the area was with fruit trees and gardens. Realizing now how traumatic this period must have been for families being torn from their homes, as this is also a part of our tribal history, I can only hope you have found some resolutions. These lands were once designated as Indian land, but somehow in the not-so-distant past, this designation has been removed from all maps of this area. With that, I would like to thank you again for coming to our valley, and I hope you come back again. Thank you.
After 46 years, what keeps us coming back to Manzanar? It's the stories, it's the connections of women and children, mothers and fathers, sons and brothers, and it's those stories that keep all of us connected. And as Beverly said, a connection to the people that came before us. The National Park Service is proud to be able to be the stewards of this important story, a very dark part of our nation's history. In February, President Obama identified another Japanese-American confinement site, Hanauli'uli, and it'll continue to allow the National Park Service to care for this very important story. So with the 70th anniversary of the closing of camp, this particular year is especially important to all of us because it lets us jump forward with how important this story is and how none of you and the Park Service will never let the world forget about the tragic experiences that people had when, as Beverly said, you were torn from your homes and brought only what you could carry. So I hope that you will take some time and look at the visitor center, and we're really proud of our new exhibit. So thank you so much for being here and letting us share your story and make sure that our constitutional rights will always be protected, because the Manzanar Committee and others have have made this a site where we can really walk out the door of our visitor center and remind ourselves that it's really about our constitutional rights and protecting those rights so that this never happens again. So thank you very much and enjoy your day.
So I have a question before the next portion of the program. Is there Julia Teranishi in the house? We're not inside, but is there a Julia Teranishi who joined us today? Very good. You're Julie? Julia? Nice to meet you. Well, I'm going to introduce you real quick before you come up. We weren't sure if you were here. So I have a few words to say before the next speaker. Julia Teranishi is she's a student from the University of California, San Diego, but she's also the president of the UCSD Nikkei Student Union. Past president of the Nikkei Student Union. You too, right, Gan? Oh, me too as well. Yeah, we're older and wiser now, I suppose. If one looks closely at our organizations and our institutions, including the pilgrimage, I think that you can see the slow but sure movement of the next generation becoming involved in these organizations. And I cannot stress how important these collegiate clubs, these NSUs, well, they all have different names, but I can't express how important they are to the fabric of our community. Because what they do is they provide an environment for students to explore. They explore their values, their history, their identity, and they explore community. And these clubs get people involved. These clubs change lives. And for many of us, even a lot of us, the alumni of these clubs, are certainly a reason why we're here today. So with that said, I'd like to invite Julia Teranishi as our student speaker of the afternoon.
Hi, my name is Julia Teranishi, and I'm a student at UC San Diego. I'm currently a senior. I'm speaking on the behalf of everybody else from Nikkei Student Union, which is our Japanese American orgs in a lot of the UCs and Cal States. So before my first Manzanar pilgrimage here 3 years ago, the little I knew about internment camps I learned from grade school, and there really wasn't much about it in our texts. After coming to Manzanar and coming to all these pilgrimages and Manzanar at dusk, I learned a lot about our ancestors, and I really wanted to share the stories. So after I got home, I talked to my parents and my little sister about all the things I heard, the experiences here. And little did I know, I started a conversation about my own ancestors. Turns out my dad's side was both interned and also fought in the war. So on a personal level, these pilgrimages have helped to paint kind of an idea of what my ancestors went through, these people I've never met before. And these ancestors are a part of me, they're a part of my identity, like he said. So even for students whose families haven't even been touched by internments directly, hearing these stories opens a door to new perspectives, and I think seeking to understand each other is a really powerful tool. Manzanar at Dusk is a platform for sharing these kinds of stories and discussing issues regarding discrimination of any group, past and present. My friends from the schools of Nikkei Student Union have been working on this program for the past couple months, and more than a couple actually, and along with Gan. So I wanted to welcome all of you guys to come out and join us. It's going to be after the ceremony at 5 o'clock to 8 p.m. at Lone Pine High School Gymnasium, which is right on 538 South Main Avenue. If you have any questions, just come up to me or Gan, who's sitting right there in the hat. Thank you so much.
The next segment of our program is titled Voices from Camp. This portion of the program is really going to give us a chance to get a first-hand account of what the incarceration experience was like. I was told that it's a chance for us to really put ourselves in the shoes of those who were incarcerated. It's a time to really talk story. And so I'd like to introduce our next two speakers. We have Pat Sakamoto, who will be coming up first, followed by award-winning artist Mary Higuchi. So if we can welcome them.
There you go, Pat.
I'm not used to doing this. Good afternoon and welcome. Sir, can you hear me now? Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to our pilgrimage. I guess I might as well start now. My mother, Sakamoto, never said anything about the camps. I would ask her and she said, there was nothing good that happened here, so there's nothing to remember. Over time, she began to talk to me, and she told me a few things. When she arrived in May of 1942, she was pregnant with her first child, my sister Janice, and she was born in October. And then in 1944, she delivered me. When it was time for her to sign the loyalty questionnaire, she automatically said, yes, yes. I would join the Waves, WACs, anything. I'm an American. I'm not leaving here. However, my father said no. And that kind of set his fate in that he lost his citizenship and he was sent to another camp. Leaving my mother here, pregnant with me, and she had to fend for herself from then on. She was devastated that he would make that decision. In fact, I never met my father. He never stayed in contact with her. In fact, my mother said his parents offered to buy my sister. And my mother's reply was, they don't sell children in this country. And they said, how could you take care of a child as a single parent? And she said, I'll do it. And she made it happen. When the camps were going to close in 1945, my mother was one of the last to leave because she had nowhere to go. And she had 2 children. She was 22 now. Probably never had a full-time job. And she was issued a trailer in Burbank. And she moved there, she looked for a job, and the job market was very poor then for the Japanese because of all of the prejudices. And I asked her at one point, how could you afford to put my sister and I in daycare with the kind of money you made? And she said, she just did it. And I kept pestering. It didn't make sense. Wasn't somebody helping her? And she said, no. And I kept pestering her. Finally, she yelled out at me, I had to go on welfare. It had to have been the most devastating thing for her to do. Because she was a proud woman. But she made it through. And she eventually met another man, whom I call my father, Paul Sakamoto. And actually, my sister and I found him for her. Because in this camp, my mother was so used to letting us run free in the camps. You know, not afraid that anyone would hurt us. So she did the same thing there. And he said, where's your mother? And we took her to her, and he said, you know, this is dangerous. They're unsupervised. And she said, what do you mean? They're just fine. Everybody knows who they belong to. So he just, from then on, he kept on coming around to make sure that my sister and I were safe at all times. And eventually it grew into a relationship, and my mother eventually married him. But before she could do that, she had to obtain a divorce from my father. And when she went to apply for her divorce, she had another obstacle. The judge at the time said that he wouldn't grant her that divorce because he felt that she could reconcile with her husband, which was impossible. He had already left for Japan. And so what she did is that she moved up to Reno, became a resident there, and was eventually able to apply for a divorce there. So she got her divorce after 6 weeks, and then on the same day she was like either downstairs for the divorce and went upstairs for the marriage. And my stepfather had come with a wedding ring for her, a diamond ring. So, and I guess you could say that's kind of a happy ending. We all left together and came to Los Angeles to live, and that's all. And she survived it all. You can all do it too, under any obstacle. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Hatsuko Mary Higuchi. I was born in 1939 on the eve of World War II. Executive Order 9066 destroyed my family's life. We were sent to Poston, Arizona, a concentration camp on the Colorado River Indian Reservation. Like Manzanar, it was desolate. When we arrived, we saw rows and rows of black tar paper barracks surrounded by barbed wire, soldiers with guns. The day we arrived, it was 126 degrees. Our room was small. The cots were lined up side by side. There was only one bare light bulb hanging from the ceiling. Latrines, showers, and laundry rooms were in distant buildings. There was no privacy. My mother bathed my baby sister and brother in the laundry room sink. Our clothes were hand-washed. I remember clothes hanging on a rope, strung across our room, with water dripping onto the floor. My mother had to do this because of the severe dust storms. After the war ended, we returned with nothing except my parents' determination to rebuild our lives. We lived in an old wooden shack. My parents rented farmland in Lawndale. When we started public school, our Japanese names were difficult for the teachers to pronounce, and we were given American names. Hatsuko became Mary. We were poor. We took our lunches to school in brown paper bags and used them until they fell apart. At lunchtime, I was so embarrassed. I unwrapped my sandwich under the table. My little sisters and I took public transit to Saturday Japanese language school. One day, a woman got on the bus, and when she saw us, she started yelling, "Get these Japs off the bus. They don't belong here." We were frightened and started crying. In fourth grade social studies, we read about the war with Japan. I remember crying because I felt I was the enemy. I felt guilty, ashamed, and inferior. My parents farmed from 1946 to 1951 until they saved enough money to put a down payment on 10 acres of farmland in Torrance. Soon after that, my father died of heart failure. I learned that 40% of the incarcerated males died before reaching the age of 60. When my father died, he was only 45. My mother, who was 10 years younger, made a brave decision to not give up the farm. She decided to farm the 10 acres herself while single-handedly raising 4 small children. The years of incarceration were never discussed in my family, nor in elementary, middle, and high school. Not even at UCLA. I took my mother to Poston, came home and did a painting of guard towers and barracks, and I asked her what she thought. She sat there quietly, studying the painting, and her expression turned to great sadness. She said, "In camp, not a day went by without wondering, what's going to happen to my children? What will become of them?" She didn't want to talk about the camps, and when I forced the issue, with tears in her eyes, she said, "Please, Hanashitaku nai. Hanashitaku nai. Hatsuko, I don't want to talk about it. I pleaded. Oka-san, kodomo no tame ni. Please, for the sake of the children and grandchildren, we need to know. My mother suffered a stroke in 2008. We took her home when there was no hope. I felt honored and privileged to take care of her after all her years of sacrifice for the sake of the children. Kodomo no tame ni. Like so many Nikkei families, the toll on our Nisei parents and Issei grandparents was terrible. Because of them, we survived. But to what extent we fully recovered is another question, which I leave to our distinguished keynote speaker, Dr. Satsuki Ina. Thank you.
So who's got a program booklet? They look something like this. If you look on the right side, that little girl who's being carried, that was our first speaker, Kat. And that's her mother, Ku, and her sister, Janice, who's walking on the side of her. Just wanted to point that out. I have the honor of... This is my favorite part. I have the honor of inviting the next individual to the stage in just a few minutes. The Su Kunitomi Embrey Legacy Award is given to those who have gone against all the odds and have made incredible achievement for our community. Can you take this? Like I said, the award is given to those who have made incredible achievement, who have gone against all the odds, but it's also called the Baka Guts Award. The folks know Baka means stupid. We don't say it that often, but the award is aptly named because these individuals are so courageous. They've done so many things it's almost crazy. Previous recipients are listed on page 21 of your program booklet. Now, Reverend Paul Nakamura is the embodiment of what I believe to be two of the most important pillars of the Manzanar Pilgrimage. That is, remembrance and service. Reverend Nakamura is one of the founders of the Manzanar Pilgrimage and a driving force behind the designation of Manzanar as a National Historic Site. But even more incredible, Reverend Nakamura has led a life of service. He's led a life of action. He's led a life of advocacy. He was a founding member of the Los Angeles Redress and Reparations Movement. He's spent dedicated years, decades of service to the Lutheran Oriental Church in Torrance. And he's led the interfaith service at Pilgrimage for decades. Now, I've been told that Reverend Nakamura would very much like to share this honor with his wife, Kikuno, so I hope that she will join him on stage. I see her smiling, but I know it's a surprise, but we hope that you'll join him on stage. And I noticed that, especially in this middle section, we've all been sitting through this first part of the program, and this is a man of incredible achievement. So I propose we can give him a standing round of applause as we welcome him and his wife to the stage.
Thank you, Craig. And I'm told we live in America. They say women first. So I had to bring her over first. Without her, I tell you, I wouldn't be here. And I'm gonna just say a word to all the men. Take care of your wife. And I always say to marriage counseling to the men, if you don't take care of your wife, tonight your rice gonna be all koge. And you know, I do want to, I'm very thankful for this moment. It gives me a chance to thank the wonderful people like Sue Embrey, who worked so hard, but she had wonderful friends. One of her close friends is Rose Uchi. We know her. She's right there with her all the time. And there's so many people that work with her that really was so dedicated that I felt very honored and privileged to work with them. And then we have the wonderful community members that work hard, like the Nakanos for NCLR, all those people NCLR, the Manzanar Committee, JSCL, and the churches and the temples, the Buddhist priests, all who were taken in without questioning, and how they suffered. And when they came back, many of the churches and temples were there to help them. They were a very vital part of the community, and as they are today. And our students, as we heard, together with those who suffered so much, how they persevered. The organization, so many of them are veterans. We know how hard they sacrificed themselves, and they were insulted in many ways, even while in the army. When they should have gone in first into a city, they were held back to let another unit go in. When they should be resting, they were called to go and take care of the problem. Oh, they sacrificed themselves. So, in a time like this, in a world such as this, it's not about me, about one person. It's about the community. It's about the community. You know, Mario Cuomo, the former governor of New York, said something very, very appropriate. He said, you find your own good in the good of the whole. Remember that. You find your own good in the good of the whole. And then you find your own individual fulfillment in the success of the community. That we learn from the community such things as perseverance, honesty, kindness, patience. This we learn from the community. And the success that we have as individuals, the fulfillment we have, comes from the community. No one, I say this with all sincerity, no one can do things on their own. Impossible. When people say, I made it on my own, You really stop to think about it. No one makes it on the road. We are interdependent. Not one of us came here walking all the way from Los Angeles or from anywhere. Somebody had to build the road. Somebody had to build the cars that you drive. Someone had to put up a hamburger stand for us. We are interdependent, and we need to recognize that, and it is this community that does it. That will raise individuals. So please, do not think of yourself as Wonder Woman or Superman. And do not think of yourself as Lone Ranger, doing everything on your own. And what Mario Cuomo said comes in two parts. Your own good and the good of the whole. This is a spiritual thing. Good. What is good? Can you hold good in your hand? You can only live it. It's a spiritual thing. The success that we enjoy, that is a physical thing. The accomplishments that we make, and that is recognized. Two parts. And we are two parts. Or three parts if you want to call it, but body and spirit. And our problem oftentimes, we deal so much with the second part and forget to connect ourselves with the good Lord who made us. We drink His water, we walk on His planet, we enjoy His sun, we even enjoy the wind. And we need to give thanks. So, when we gather and live life not to ourselves. Because all He asks of us is two things. One, to care for His environment, to care for His creation. Secondly, to care for one another. To care for one another. That's what He calls us to do. That's all. It's not to care only for myself. To love God and to love men. And as Jesus said, love one another as I have loved you. Not as Hollywood does. If you know what I mean. And Hollywood has many good people too. No, they do. You know that. But you know what I mean. So sometimes, put away your tablets, your cell phone. Say a word of prayer. And one day of the week, go to your temples, go to your churches, go to your synagogues, to wherever you worship, go. Give thanks. So today I share this award for all of us, for it's for all of us. It's not for one person, but for all of us. So thank you for your partnership. And I want you to know, my dear niece gave me this. She and her husband, they're here. And her folks, her dad, my brother, were in camp. So were her mother and her father. But I was in Camp Hawaii. Couldn't go nowhere anyway.
this in Sue Embrey's name because they worked hand in hand and they were a force to be reckoned with. A pillar of our community to Reverend Paul, and this is the Suke Embrey Legacy Award to a Man of Valor, Reverend Paul Nakamura.
I'd like to invite Wilbur Sato to the stage. As many of us are aware, Wilbur is a longtime member of NCRR, Nikkei for Civil Rights and Redress. He's also been a longtime member of the Manzanar Committee, longtime advocate for the Manzanar National Historic Site. Now, several years back, Wilbur, Sue Embrey, Bruce Kaji, they took a trip down to Bainbridge in support of the historic marker that was being set up there. And in remembrance of his experience, Wilbur wrote a poem, which he presented to Sue as an homage to the Bainbridge people. So Wilbur will honor us today by reading that poem, which is located on page 11 of your program booklet. So if you would join me in welcoming Wilbur, who will be reading his poem, Memories of Bainbridge.
Hey, Wilbur! Hello. You know, I've been coming here to Manzanar Pilgrimage since 1980, every year. But my birthday is on April 26th, so the birthday has never been such a happy occasion. So last year I took a time off to really celebrate my birthday, and I didn't come last year, so I came this year. Coming back, I had to relive these terrible memories, you know, so it's kind of sad to really come back and think about all the bad things that happened. But so I want to all of you to participate in this. This is a mass participation activity, and so I want all of you to get comfortable. You see this clouds over there? Beautiful day. That means snow. That means water for us. That's great. Wonderful to see that. So I want you to get comfortable, relax, breathe in, breathe out. Today is your day. Now is the time. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, but right now. I want you to focus on now, the present. Okay? Empty your mind. Think now, right now. Okay? And I want you to join me in this poem. So I will read the first line, and then you will join it the second time we do it, okay? It's called Memories of Bainbridge. We remember Bainbridge. Okay, your turn. We remember Bainbridge. And the silver piece we found. The sunlight on the water. And the geese on Puget Sound. We came to you as strangers. We knew not where to start. Exploring all the secret places of your heart. The graveyard in the forest. Light filtering through the trees. The reverence in the silence. And the rush of memories. You recall the turmoil. And the time of sweet accord. The gravestones now are mended, and the garden now restored. The Issei now rest easy. A peaceful sky above, in harmony with nature, with piety and love. You shared with us a secret. A village long ago, the building buildings and the people, and the stories that you know. That hallowed site lies silent. They left there not a trace of the energy and spirit of that humble, valiant race. They left you an inheritance more worthier than gold, their values, their struggles, and a dream that was so bold. You unwrapped your scrapbook, and the newsprint stung like rain as we recounted over the horror and the pain. We saw the trucks and soldiers that wrenched you from your land and sent you on a journey to that place of blowing sand. The beauty of your faces, the sadness and regret, these things we must remember, lest mankind should forget. Atomic shadows burnt on sidewalks in a land so far away are remembered in a chapel not far from Eagle Bay. The priests are on a mission that the hand of war be stayed, that all people shall be brothers, and by race be not betrayed. And so we made our visit, and humbly did we part. Did we tell you that we love you, and left behind our heart? Thank you very much.
We are going to change up the program just a bit with a musical interlude. Our first performer, Jonathan Lee, he has been with the committee for decades, but I was told not only is he an incredible singer, but was even a nightclub singer back in Taiwan, and I hear that he's been practicing. You've been practicing? Here, he's been practicing. After that, we're going to have another song by Kyodo Taiko, so let's welcome both of our musical performers. originally have this in my script, but I'm going to point out one individual right there in the Bruins cap. Stand up, Ken.
Why?
Part of the reason why there are so many student speakers, part of the reason why Kyodo Taiko performs is that Gan has been instrumental in bringing all of this, the next generation, out to pilgrimage. So, want to thank you personally. Got to give you that shout out. This afternoon's keynote address is going to be given by Dr. Satsuki Ina. Now, Dr. Ina is a licensed psychotherapist specializing in community trauma. She is a professor emeritus at the School of Education for CSU Sacramento and the founder of its Family Study Center. And of course, she's done some amazing things in our community. Most notably, after 15 years of researching the long-term, that means generational, impact of incarceration, she produced 2 documentaries that were both not only widely viewed but also broadcast on PBS. She's also a board member with the Tule Lake Committee. She's also a planner of the Tule Lake Pilgrimage and very popular in Southern California in 2015 as she was also the keynote speaker at the Gardena Valley JCI Day of Remembrance. Let's welcome Dr. Ina to the stage.
Watashi wa Manzanar. This is the theme of today's pilgrimage, continuing our civil rights legacy. It was 1942 when Manzanar was the first of the 10 concentration camps to open, the beginning of a terrible injustice incarcerating over 120,000 people of Japanese ancestry. 1969 was the first pilgrimage to Manzanar. Young people, like many of the young people here today, came here seeking answers, not only to their history, but to their identity. 1973, Jean Wakatsuki Houston wrote her wonderful book, Farewell to Manzanar, one of the first publications ever to tell the world about our story. Today, 70 years later, since the actual closing of this camp, we're here together in pilgrimage to say, Watashi wa Manzanar. I am Manzanar. We're here on a healing journey to remember the truth and to tell our story. We're here to claim our history. Watashi wa Manzanar. I am Manzanar. Forced removal from our homes under armed guard to an unknown destination. Imprisoned behind barbed wire fences for an indefinite period of time, with thousands of other innocent people. All of this was an atrocity. What we suffered was trauma, loss of control that is profound and outside of the range of normal human experience. It alters the person's sense of self and view of the world. Captivity is a degrading, powerless experience. We were imprisoned victims, assumed guilty by reason of race. Our perpetrator was our government. The president that we respected signed the executive order that held us as prisoners without rights. Trauma is rife with loss. Not only did we lose our land, property, friends, education, homes, farms, pets, our careers, but most profoundly were the invisible losses of trauma. These are the effects that remain in the hearts and souls of survivors today. We suffered the loss of dignity, of self-determination, of power, of hope, of faith, of possibility, and of pride in being Japanese. It's difficult to speak of such things. Experts on collective historic trauma say that the human response to such humiliation is to be silent, to distort and diminish the suffering, and even to wipe the memory away in an effort to preserve some sense of dignity. And so it has been many years for our community, our families, our parents, our leaders who struggle to survive by saying farewell to Manzanar. It is the way individuals and communities needed to begin the healing of the searing pain of racism and oppression. It had been necessary to be silent, to focus on the silver lining, to remember our friendships, the ball games, and the gatherings. But it often takes generations for this healing to move beyond staunching the pain, anger, and powerlessness. There was a time we could only say farewell to Manzanar. And doing so, we often gave up our place as true Americans, silenced our voices so as not to cause trouble. We merged our stories with that of the perpetrator using language such as relocation center, evacuation, assembly centers, to do what all trauma victims do: struggle to survive. Many shaped their lives and those of their children to prove that they were 110% loyal Americans, and unconsciously sacrificing what was unique, daring, creative, for fear that their freedom always stood on tenuous grounds. The intergenerational transmission process of trauma is evident today. When we hear people say, "I didn't know," they never said anything, except they talked about the good times. So this silence, this minimizing of the trauma, is the trauma itself. It's the missing piece of our identity, our sense of belonging, our connection with our ancestors, our confusion about embracing our history with knowledge and confidence. It's not your fault. It's not your fault that you didn't know. It's not your fault that you didn't know that you too were victims of the trauma, a victim of secondary trauma. Internalizing the unspoken and accepting the government narrative was imposed on you as well. "70 years have passed since the last prisoner walked out of Manzanar. And during these 70 years, slowly but surely, signs of our healing have been evident. The slowly gathering storm of shared voices of the Nisei and Sansei demanding that the injustice of our incarceration be acknowledged and redressed. Slowly, the language of our experience has been challenged, and the narrative of our incarceration is changing. Slowly, our words are landing on our true experience of our family struggles. evacuation to assembly centers, and transfer to relocation centers of alien and non-alien Japanese from the West Coast. We now recognize as deliberate euphemisms that made it possible to compromise our most fundamental rights as citizens and human beings. We are reclaiming our history, sharing our stories, preserving our artifacts, and in doing so, we are shedding our shame, our fear, and giving voice to what was once silenced in our communities. More and more, we are saying no, no to the language imposed upon us. We are saying no, no to demonizing those who were dissidents. We are saying no, no to educational systems that fail to teach about the unjust incarceration. And most recently, we are saying no, no to people who seek financial gain from auctioning off precious artifacts created in our camps. Today's Manzanar Pilgrimage, Watashi wa Manzanar, continuing our civil rights legacy, signifies a watershed moment in our Japanese American history. It clearly represents the growing movement over the years, the shifting of our community consciousness from farewell to Manzanar, I am Manzanar, Watashi wa Manzanar. Watashi wa Manzanar means we are writing our narrative. We are telling our story, using the language of our truth. We are claiming our loss, suffering, grief, anger, sorrow, and we claim our strength, our resilience, our endurance, giri, gaman, gambatte. We are claiming our Japanese heritage as we go forward in our healing. Watashi wa Manzanar means giving dignity to our history of righteous protest, of dissidence as a legitimate entitlement as American citizens. This journey to Manzanar is a journey to our community healing, as we shed the necessary defenses that have kept our trauma shrouded in silence and acquiescence and fear. Manzanar, with its historic legacy of protest, we are reminded to continue forward with our protest against any group targeted and abused, bullied, and stigmatized. We will challenge the myth that we are the model minority to be held up to other oppressed people in our society. Instead, we will stand in unity as allies, proudly knowing, I am Manzanar, Watashi wa Manzanar, we are Manzanar, Watashi tachi wa Manzanar. I'd like us all to recognize the organizers of this event, the National Park Service, the inspired legacy of Sue Kunitomi Embrey, the former prisoners and their families, our friends, our compassionate witnesses. All of you have traveled far to be together on this profound healing journey. Let us carry the inspiration of the journey forward. Let's hear it from your hearts and souls. Please repeat after me. Watashi wa Manzanar! Watashi wa Manzanar! Watashi wa Manzanar! Thank you very much.
We are just about to end the presentation portion of today's program. The Manzanar Committee wanted to recognize those volunteers who had spent their afternoon to make this program happen. If we can give them a round of applause. In addition to that, I'd like to also spend this time to thank the Manzanar Committee. You know, I think a lot of times the work that we do in community organizations and nonprofits, it goes unrecognized, it goes unthanked. But not today. Today you will be recognized for your work. These are folks who have been around for a long time, and the guy who's taking the picture, he's one example. They've been around for a very, very, very long time to bring us this pilgrimage every year, to give us this chance to remember, to reflect. So if we can recognize all the members of the Manzanar Committee, I'm not going to ask them to stand up because they're going to be very Japanese about it and not stand up, but you know who you are, so let's give them a round of applause. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to have three pieces. We're going to have a message by Bruce Embrey, our Manzanar Committee Chair. Then we're going to have a roll call of the camps, and that is going to transition us into the interfaith service, which is going to be held by the monument. Now, it's been an honor, it's been a pleasure to be able to host as your MC for this pilgrimage this year. As I mentioned at the beginning, I think that I almost said Day of Remembrance. I think that events like Day of Remembrance and the pilgrimage, they're amazing because they give us a chance to reflect, but they're also incredibly rooted in life. As I mentioned at the beginning as well, I work with a lot of young people. I work with them every day, every weekend. The thing that I've noticed is that we live in a time where the question is becoming more and more about what's in it for me? What's in it for my kids? What's in it for my future? And I think that we sometimes forget that just 2 generations ago, the questions were exactly the opposite. We had a generation of folks who mortgaged their homes to start our churches, our community centers. They endured the incarceration experience, and their question was, what can I do to help others? And so I hope that from all of our speakers, especially Reverend Nakamura's speech, go to your church, do something. Go to your organization, do something. I hope that that's the takeaway message that every visitor will have today, is what can I do to move my community into the future? And if everybody does just a little bit, I think we're in for a very bright future. So, thank you very much. We can welcome Bruce Embrey to the stage.
Thank you, Dr. Ina. That was really excellent. That was powerful. Thank you. So sorry for me because I had to follow her. Thank you, Craig, for your kind words. We want to thank you for being here. And being here, you're not just a passive audience. Your presence here means something. People pay attention to the fact that you're here. 2 things have happened recently. One very recently, just happened yesterday, that really stem from the pilgrimages, whether they're at Manzanar, Tule Lake, Minidoka, Heart Mountain. The pilgrimages make a mark and people pay attention. There was an auction that was about to happen, or an auction happened in New Jersey. And that auction house was about to auction off over 400 artifacts, family treasures, artisanal quality items made by incarcerees from camp. And they were going to sell it for private gain. It was a private auction, profit essentially. Some people called it war profiteering, other people had other names for it. But they chose to withdraw those items, that lot, from that auction. That was just recently. And they chose to do it because there was an outcry from our community. There was an outpouring of protest from those of us that are the direct descendants, as well as those who were in camp. That is a victory. These victories come about because we're aware of what happened. We're aware of where we've been and what our families endured. We have another victory that just happened yesterday here in the Owens Valley. Many of you know that the DWP and a private company named Northland were planning massive industrial solar factory type facilities that would have destroyed much of the viewshed here in Manzanar, destroyed your ability to appreciate what really took place here 70 years ago, and destroyed this beautiful, pristine environment. Northland has withdrawn its permit. There's a new day when the people who were forced to live here and their descendants can team up with those who have been here for centuries, if not longer, and other recent settlers to oppose a common threat. We came together because we understand the necessity of remembering what takes place here, whether it be for the native peoples of the Paiute Shoshone tribe, the farmers and settlers that came after, or our families that were forced to live here. We have a special relationship to this place that we need to cherish and understand, and we need to come together to protect it. We did that. The DWP has also, while not completely withdrawing, has essentially tabled their South Owens Valley Solar Ranch. That is a victory. This place is a victory. This site is a victory. Today we stand here at this National Historic Site on the very land that not even a generation ago was once an American concentration camp. We stand here today having had presidents apologize for this grave injustice. We've had presidents name Fred Korematsu, Gordon Hirabayashi heroes and given them medals. Ours is a powerful story, and we should be proud of telling it. It is a story of a resilient people who, facing one of the greatest failures of American democracy, chose not only to survive, but to demand justice. Ours is a powerful story, a story about the loss of freedom, of prejudice, of being marched off to live behind barbed wire without charges, and when forced to leave camp, to resettle with no or little support in a hostile environment. Our community had mixed emotions. No doubt people were angry. People were scared. How could you not be? You were accused with absolutely no proof of being the enemy, of plotting to harm your country, denied your birthright of citizenship, all because of your ancestry. It is easy now, some 70 years later, to see why our community chose not to remember, chose not to speak of what happened, but instead move on and get on with their lives. But because of the broader civil rights movement that was sweeping America in the 1960s, and because of people like people of valor, like Reverend Paul, or people who we don't know much about, like Paul Tsuneshi, who fought tenaciously, or my mother, who stood up in the late 60s and early 70s to demand justice. Our community chose not to forget. But it was beyond remembering. Our community chose to act. We must remember what got us to this point today. We must remember the strength, the resilience, and the abilities of our families, our people, to endure. But we must also remember the channeling of the righteous anger that stemmed from this injustice, that demands redress, a demand that this wrong be righted, and that we became part of a broader civil rights movement. In the program, you'll see an advertisement honoring Reverend Paul that says from Montgomery to Manzanar. That is the civil rights movement. Reverend Paul was in Montgomery in 1965. 50 some years ago, we want to remember that our people too demanded civil rights for all Americans. Before my mother or Warren Furatani or the student activists gathered here some 46 years ago, not much of Manzanar remained. Broken dishes, the auditorium that the county was using to house heavy equipment was about it. But because people chose to remember and chose to return year after year and to tell their stories, just as we did here today, this place, this lone cemetery monument, this sagebrush-strewn land has grown to become a world-class National Historic Site. You see that remembering is not a passive act. We must act on these memories, and we must stand with those who are unjustly accused or persecuted today. What the Muslim Americans and Arab Americans are experiencing today is reminiscent of what our Obasans and Oji-sans experienced some 70 years ago. We must act if we are to be true to our community and true to our country. We remember to tell our stories, and we remember not to reignite old animosities, not to reignite the bitterness or bad feelings that so many of us harbored. We remember and work to preserve our story so that our people and our country can learn from our past and not be condemned to repeat it. This is why we remember. It is our duty as Americans who experienced firsthand how precious civil and constitutional rights are, to remember. We ask you to join us. Join us in preserving our history, our traditions. Join us in preserving this amazing National Historic Site. And in fact, join us to help preserve all of the confinement sites in this great country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we do the roll camp. Amache, Colorado, 7,318 people. Melanie Lucia. Crystal City, Texas, 2,118 people. Hector Watanabe.
That's Steve Nagano.
Steve Nagano, wrong list, sorry. Gila River, Arizona, 13,348. Dr. Donald Hata. Heart Mountain, Wyoming, 10,787. David Fujioka. Jerome, Arkansas, 8,497. Tomoko Brooks and Kanji Sahara. Manzanar, California, 10,046. Pat Sakamoto, Brian Maeda. Poston, Arizona, 17,814. Mary Higuchi. Minadoka, Idaho, 9,397. Michael Okamura. Rower, Arkansas, 8,475. Ruth Tamaki Beatles. Topaz, Utah, 8,130. David Goto. Tule Lake, California, 18,789. Nancy Oda and Ernie Jane Nishi. The 442nd and 100th MIS, Bill Shishima. Thank you, and please follow the banner holders to the gate where you'll receive some flowers and then enter the interfaith service.